Another day and another report really is what's going on here as it pertains to Trey Lance. Is there really a leak coming out of the building? Is this a real thing with Trey Lance? Are the 49ers having buyer's remorse with their second-year quarterback? Is that the reason Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster? We will address yet another report on the subject today. And are the 49ers tipping their hands with their draft picks on what they're going to be doing in future free agency periods? All that coming up on today's episode of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you once again at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Croc, are you? And we weren't going to go this direction today. We were going to talk 49ers offensive linemen. And so we're going to have to push back our episode of Spencer Burford and Nick Zakelj scouting reports, how they fit into the 49ers offensive line. And we've got time this offseason to get to all these prospects, and we're going to start doubling it up and tripling up on some of these prospects and go through the rest of the draft picks. Brock Purdy will be the last draft pick after that, and some of the undrafted free agents as well. Some scouting reports. So you 49ers fans know what you're looking at when the team gets on the field for training camp and for preseason games, and it might be the only time we get to see some of these guys in the end of those preseason games, especially some of the undrafted rookies. But I think there's some talent that the 49ers are working with in their rookie class. So
Definitely.
Today, Croc, another report. And the thing about this report that, by the way, comes from CBS Sports and former offensive lineman, he was a third-round pick by the Broncos back in the 2000s, Ryan Harris. There's a couple of things that are little tidbits that we're hearing from these reports about Trey Lance that are common. So it's either the same report that's continually being recycled and it's a game of telephone, Croc, or it's these same sources that are talking to multiple people and telling them the same things about Trey Lance. I have a feeling it's a recycled bunch of reports that's going around out there. But I want to read this for the listeners who haven't heard the report yet and set the stage here for this latest report about Trey Lance. And it goes like this. Ryan Harris, he was asked recently about just, by the way, that's the week one matchup, Justin Fields versus Trey Lance. And he was asked, okay, which quarterback is in the best situation to succeed in their sophomore year? You know, who's going to be the guy? And he said Trey Lance with the caveat. He said, I'm here to tell you, after people I've talked to, everyone I've spoken to expected Jimmy Garoppolo to start week one against the Bears this year. Jimmy Garoppolo, starting quarterback, 49ers, 2022. He went on to say, from the players I've talked to and coaches I've talked to who are at the 49ers. So he's not saying that these reports are coming from somebody who used to be with the 49ers. He said, from players I've talked to and coaches I've talked to who are at the 49ers, not are at the 49ers, Trey Lance is really leaving a lot to be desired in terms of the fitness of his arm, whether or not he can digest the playbook and can really start to process the game at a high level. So breaking news for you, I believe it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo in that game with the better structure around him and having Kyle Shanahan want to create the narrative week one against the Bears, end quote. That is what Ryan Harris, former NFL player, is hearing. And he didn't put any names to the reports, but he said from players I've talked to and coaches I've talked to who are at the 49ers. What do you think about that latest report, Croc? Players currently with the 49ers, unhappy with the second-year quarterback, and they want Jimmy to stay. Could that be a possibility?
You know, I think it definitely could be a possibility, and I think a lot of times where there's smoke, there's fire. And we've heard a lot of smoke surrounding Trey Lance's name. Now, some of the things that he's saying, I don't question the validity of it, but just trying to put my coaching cap on and how I think as a coach, I don't know. Those aren't things that I'm able to foresee, and maybe they can, right? Like if a guy just isn't grasping things at all, and he's just not able to, and it just this is just not right at all, then I could see a scenario where you're like, oh, well, this other guy just flat out gives us a better chance to win. Now, the other part to it, they haven't really been on the field like that. There might be some like routes on air, but I don't think, and again, it's just me. I'm not sure exactly how stuff goes now. I remember when I played OTAs, there are a bunch of different phases, and then you have like mini camp where you go up against guys, but I don't know if they are like going against each other to where it's like you could see, oh, he's not digesting things and whatnot. Maybe it is. I don't know how far they are along, but I haven't heard there be any mini camps yet. Have you? I don't know the mini camp dates. But if there's not, how good of a look are you getting? Because I find it very hard to believe that the whatever he said, the fitness of the arm, I have a hard time thinking that that's lacking, especially with routes on air. It's like he can't throw routes on air. I'd have a hard time with that because a lot of these things. It would be one thing if we didn't see his arm or some of these things, but like we have, and the digesting of a playbook, right? That's what I put question mark as well. The digesting of a playbook. My thing is, everyone knows how complex Kyle Shanahan's playbook is. Is that something that you're able to just digest without really going out there and playing? Or is it something where it's like, no, if you're just sitting there, you can learn Kyle Shanahan's offense even without going through it. So there's that aspect of it. And real quick, last one. What is he digesting it for right now if everything is routes on air? Is just not getting it? Kyle Shanahan said before, well, no, he knows the playbook. Now it's just about getting the live reps in game. So I question what part he's not getting. Okay, I said it last time, but this is one more. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, he's not grasping the playbook, whatever they're thinking. Well, can't you just scale it to a different way that fits for him? That's what most coordinators do. Because what works for Jimmy and what works maybe doesn't work for Matt Ryan, but what works for Matt Ryan maybe didn't work for RG3, who ended up being the offensive rookie of the year. What worked for RG3 might not work for Trey Lance. So the offense typically is different depending on who's the quarterback. So what part of it is not digesting? I have a lot of questions, and I don't know. It just sounds a little weird.
The fitness of his arm part is just for sure doesn't pass the test, period. Because if you want to talk fitness of arms, what about Jimmy Garoppolo with a bad thumb and a bad shoulder? That's a worse arm than Trey Lance's, period. So fitness of arm is not a reason that Jimmy Garoppolo would play over Trey Lance. Ever, right?
Well,
what fitness of Trey Lance's arm would be not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo's?
I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
And he didn't say arm strength. He didn't say accuracy, but those are the two things that would go into arm talent. Is there just not a level of arm talent with Trey Lance that you would say, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo's a better thrower of the football? I mean, even if there's some accuracy issues with Trey Lance, and look, again, I think you nailed something there. It's like, are we talking about, his first career start as a rookie against the Arizona Cardinals in the first half of his rookie season? Are we talking about that Trey Lance? Are we talking about what Trey Lance could be? Because we don't know what he's going to be in 2022 yet. We haven't even seen that yet. We haven't seen what he's learned and what he gained throughout his rookie season. So, and I know there's coaches, and I know a lot of people put together who it is. Somebody's clearly talking, right? And I thought that it was the same recycled report from that ex-49ers coach, that maybe he's talking to multiple people and people were like, oh, I've heard this. And you get that cycle. But Ryan Harris's report here says that it's players he's talked to and coaches he's talked to who are at the 49ers. But if there's a lot of this thought in the building right now, currently, that's a bad thing. If there was a coach or two that is not in the building anymore, I'm not even worried about it at all. Plus, they're not in the building anymore, and they don't know what the right now Trey Lance looks like, because every rookie is lost at quarterback. So I want to tease this question, Croc, because is it possible that the 49ers maybe got a different quarterback than they thought they were drafting. Could that possibly be it? I want to talk about that subject a little bit more later. What can we learn? What is reality? What do we know? What can we take away from this report and call BS? What could possibly be real about some of these reports? Because we've heard a few things by multiple different people in the media. So what is to be believed about Trey Lance in this stuff? And then we'll get into the mailbag a little bit because there's a couple questions about what the 49ers are doing in the draft that might give us clues about what the 49ers plans are long-term with some current players on their roster. But I'd like to let the folks out there know about Built Bar first. How about brownie batter puffs? You love brownies? Of course you do. You love more brownie butter. Brownie batter. Brownie butter would be good too. Brownie batter. And sometimes, you just eat half. You ever do that? Make brownies and you eat half the batter before you even cook the stinking brownies. You lick that spatula clean, right? Well, you're in luck because Built has a new creation. This one is better than ever. The brownie batter puff. You heard me right. The puff makes protein bars it takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now at built.com. A protein infused marshmallow mixed with brownie batter, yet it's good for you. Only 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 7 grams of sugar. So that's the perfect pick-me-up if you want to reach for a treat that you feel good about, that tastes delicious, covered in 100% real chocolate, yet is not going to crush your diet. And Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. The brownie batter puffs will have you completely forgetting what you are eating, a protein bar, and that you are eating something that is healthy for you. So go to built.com and get brownie batter puffs right now, and tons of other flavors like birthday cake puff, coconut marshmallow, churro puff, and all the classic flavors, cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut, peanut butter, brownie, raspberry, salted caramel. Find all those right now at built.com and use promo code LOCKS15 to get 15% off your order. That is promo code LOCKS15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks again for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Not only the Locked On NFL show with Ross Jackson and Chris Carter, Tony Wiggins, Alex Clancy, Luke Braun, a whole host of hosts there covering all 32 teams in the NFL, and the Peacock and Williamson show is also on the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. So get subscribed to that. Also check out Eric Crocker co-hosting Locked On NFL Draft Daily right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, because there's no offseason for real fans, Croc. All right.
Real quick, I do want to ask one question. I know you have you teed some stuff up.
Yeah.
What do you think if let's say these reports are true?
Yeah.
What percentage of them changing his mechanics could potentially go into a slow start to OTAs? Because that's been the thing, right? Where a lot of people are like, oh, they're reworking some things, and whatever that is. And I remember me playing with the San Jose SaberCats. And maybe this is why I give him a little bit more leeway. Let's say if this stuff even is true. I played with the SaberCats. I got there. I just came off of a season where I had 11 interceptions, right? I'm balling. I'm the guy. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Everybody's calling. I got offered by a contract by dang near every team in the league, right? I signed with San Jose. San Jose brings me in, and they point out all the things that they didn't like. Don't like this. Look how you stepped here. Look how you opened here. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? I'm like, damn, do they even like me? Right? But you start to practice, and now I'm trying to use their technique, and it's just not working for me. Like, I'm trying to buy into it, and I'm getting whooped. And I'm just like, gosh, I'm trying to do everything that they told me. And like, this is just not me. And when it clicked, and I'm talking about like multiple, like for 3 months of kind of going through this offseason training sessions, things like that, it didn't click into the first game of the season. That's when finally it was like, boom, oh, there it is. Like, and I grasped it more, and I got more comfortable with it. And those same things that's everything I teach now with cornerbacks. So do you think there's some of that where he's so focused on trying to improve mechanics, and maybe something's not natural for him, that maybe the ball isn't flying out the same way? because, well, they changed this or they changed the way, oh, let's shorten this up instead of bringing it here so it doesn't fly out the same way. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you see this all the time with any sport, right? You see it with baseball players all the time. They're working on something during spring training, and they might hit 150 in spring training because they know they have a roster spot and they're trying to work on getting inside the ball, hitting the ball the other way, hitting the ball the other way. And maybe it's working, maybe it's not working. And, then you get to the regular season and now they're like, okay, well, now I'm just playing ball because I've worked on this thing I need to work on. And it sounds like that similar thing that happened to you. And you're working on what you need to get better, and you're still good at the things you're good at. And then when you start to put those together, now you're at a new level. And I'm sure with Trey Lance, it's not comfortable for him working on new mechanics and throwing a new way until it becomes natural. And that's just going to happen with reps. And then at some point, whether it's training camp or during the season, he's going to have to settle in and decide how he's going to throw. And either it's going to look like the new way or it's going to look like the old way, but he's got to just let it go and let it be natural. And hopefully, the mechanical changes he's made over the course of the year sneak into the way he used to throw. And guy like Tom Brady's 45 years old. He's working on his mechanics right now somewhere. Right. And so that's always going to be a work in progress. But I just don't know if that's really it, because he's got a better arm than the guy they're talking about. So you can't say that the fitness of Trey Lance's arm leaves a lot to be desired and say that the guy that should play instead is Jimmy Garoppolo. That just doesn't make sense on any level. Now, the other part of it, if he's not digesting the playbook, and I'm sure his head was spinning, I would be shocked if his head wasn't spinning day one walking in to Kyle Shanahan's offense from North Dakota State, right? And processing the game at a high level. That absolutely makes sense. That's just every rookie quarterback. And Steve Young on the Rich Eisen's show yesterday was talking about that. There's no ready. There is no such thing as ready. It's just going to have to come, and it's going to have to go from brain processing to the arm to out, and it all has to happen in an instant. It all has to come together, and there's no way to fake that. There's no way to get there except for with reps, and it's going to take some time. And so we can't really know where that is until live bullets are flying, and we haven't even seen that enough. So you're not going to learn that from one day of OTAs, and you're not going to, and nobody's really seen him. Who's been catching passes from him? Who's seen him even since the end, since that Texans game, basically? It's been like Ayuk and the guys he's throwing to down in LA, right? John Beck, his the quarterback guru, the team he's working with down there? Is it someone like that talking about him? Like, who would actually have information like this currently on the 2022 version of Trey Lance that isn't something that was just, him from being a rookie that everybody struggled with as rookies? All these
right. Then there's that part of it, right? Where for some reason he gets, like, I don't want to say unfairly criticized, but he might get critiqued a little bit more than the other guys when it wasn't like they were hot either. And that's always kind of been weird to me. And just in defense of like a 49er player, right? I get defensive when people talk about Deebo Samuel not being a quote unquote pure receiver. And it's like, dude, he had 1,400 receiving yards. Like, what the hell do you mean? Like, what is this pure receiver thing? Is a pure receiver more productive than Deebo, who's a 1,400-yard guy? So like, it could be Trey Lance, it could be Deebo, it could be somebody telling me something crazy about Nick Bosa, right? Where I'm going to defend Nick Bosa. Like, no, like, I watched this guy. Like, he's going to be all right. Those things are kind of interesting, but I don't know, when it comes to Trey Lance and you watch him, and you were talking about some of the things that we saw like in college, and did they draft the guy that they were expecting? Like, is he that player now? And I think the thing that I was banking on with Trey Lance more than anything, and why I was more willing to put money on him than any other quarterback in that class, is because of the person that he was. Now, if you find out that maybe he's not that person, then he just fooled everyone. And now that's an issue, right? Like, maybe he isn't as willing to put the hard work in. I don't know how he would fool so many people along the way, but if that is indeed what's going on, then yeah. But I don't know. I think as far as the picking up playbook or digesting a playbook, how soon does he have to digest the full playbook? And when you watch him, and I just watched like this highlight of him, it was like all his highlights from preseason to Houston Texans, and you watch him, and you could tell that, yeah, like there's things that he's not digesting fast enough. But all right, he just turns into a playmaker. Sometimes he'll miss a throw, and you see a lot of things that he makes off script, whereas like, well, some other quarterbacks can't do that. And I think with young quarterbacks that have that type of ability, that's one of the things that you have to kind of live with, unless you've been groomed by Kyle Shanahan and you are Kyle Shanahan. Kyle wants things done a very specific way. Now that can throw things off and throw off how people view it, because if you're expecting him right now to be able to grasp the offense the way that Jimmy did, and even then, I don't know what version of Jimmy are talking about, the one that threw 5 straight interceptions in a practice, or like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's just all Jimmy. When I remember watching Jimmy in practice, and I never thought he was a good practice player. So I don't know. It's really weird. It's weird to the extent of how these things are coming off. And I would kind of defend any young guy with limited snaps the same way I am Trey Lance.
And this isn't to bash Jimmy Garoppolo or anything like that either, but you know, the arm stuff just doesn't make sense. That's not why you go to Jimmy, because of the arm.
I don't think that's what he's saying though. I mean, he said the fitness arm and whatever that means.
Yeah, what does that mean? It's either arm strength or accuracy. He's not hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo's
I would say digesting the playbook would be more of a bigger thing to me, but
it would make sense. And that would make sense for any rookie quarterback. And I'd be surprised if he was. Here's the other thing. So, and look, the 49ers already tried to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's the biggest part of all this BS, is that the 49ers' grand plan is to start Jimmy Garoppolo in week 1. If he didn't have arm surgery, he wouldn't be on the team right now. They were trying to trade him. They had trades. They were talking trade. He was out the door, right? He had said goodbye. They had said goodbye to him. They were trying to trade him. John Lynch is talking to GMs about what they're going to get. And they're like, oh, wait, hold on. He's going to have surgery. Let's hold off on that. We don't want to trade for Jimmy now. Like, they were trying to trade him. So that definitely was never the plan this offseason. It was the Trey Lance was always the plan. So that's the whole Jimmy Garoppolo in week 1. Now, if you let Jimmy hang around and maybe he wins the competition, starts week 1, that's one thing. But
which is possible.
It's possible. Yeah, that shouldn't be ruled out. But that wasn't the plan. It wasn't like, oh, Trey Lance is terrible. We're hanging on to Jimmy because we want him to start week 1. That's not the thing.
Right. As Kyle has said,
what's that?
Kyle said, we like what we saw from Trey Lance and the trajectory of it, and that's why we wanted to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why we were like, okay, we're good with trading him, and we can move on from him because we like what we see from Trey Lance moving forward. Like, that's what Kyle said.
One last note on Trey Lance, and then we will answer the question from one of our listeners whether or not the 49ers are giving us hints on what they're going to do in free agency next offseason. How about bet online? You can bet on all kinds of things. How about you can bet on if the Super Bowl champion is going to once again come from the NFC West. They are tied for the second highest odds to win a Super Bowl. Only the AFC West is ahead of the NFC West right now. The AFC East is tied with the NFC West at 4.5 to 1 odds for that division to have the Super Bowl winner and Super Bowl 57. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest odds, news, sports developments, including not only NFL futures, but NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, even live betting, in-game betting, which is always a lot of fun, esports, and more. So you got to go to the website today, betonline.net. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Croc, the only thing that would make sense to me out of all these reports, and look, it's, ex-coaches that are burned that are talking, right? And we already know that there's one for sure that is talking, that maybe didn't like Trey Lance, and maybe the way the offseason was handled last year and how they decided to trade up out of the blue and go get a guy. And then, of course, there's going to be in-house arguments, just like there was with fans. Which quarterback is the one? Which quarterback is the best, right? So beyond that, and maybe some sour grapes from some coaches that aren't with the 49ers, the only thing to me that makes sense in-house is, and what if Debo's the guy that doesn't like Trey Lance? What if part of this whole thing with Debo is Lance? And talking to players, what if it's Debo that's like, man, I don't even like Trey Lance. I don't think this dude's going to be good. Maybe that's part of it. His numbers were pretty decent when Trey Lance was in there, but I'm trying to think of what players would be saying that about Trey Lance right now, right? Would players be working out with Trey Lance in the offseason and being like, oh my God, after the day's practice, texting people like, oh, this guy's trash. Like, I don't see if that's necessarily it, but I guess that's a possibility. But the real thing to me is when I hear the thing about the arm, the only thing that would make sense is if the 49ers, when they scouted Trey Lance, got a little bit duped, and maybe he's not putting in as much work. We talked about that a little bit. And maybe his arm is maybe just not as big as they thought. He didn't run a 40. Maybe they thought, oh, we're going to get a guy who's 4'4" and has Josh Allen arm, right? And maybe they get a guy that's like, well, his arm's good, but it's not as amazing as we thought it was going to be. And he's athletic, but he's not quite as good of a runner as we thought he was going to be. And we've seen a few of those runs, right? Where in college, he was running over fools into the end zone at North Dakota State. He tried the truck stick a few times as a rookie, and I think he was 0 for on all of those, right? So maybe there's a little bit of that where, wow, we thought we were getting a specimen, and he's just good, not great physically. Maybe that's it, where they just feel like he's not as good as maybe they had hoped. And that happens all the time in the draft, right?
That can definitely be the case, but he got one kind of guy that vouched for him, and it was George Kittle. And George Kittle was on the I Am Athlete podcast, and they asked him, like, who does it remind you of? And he said, Josh Allen. And he was like, now, like, obviously, like, Josh Allen has done some things. He's become really good. But he was like, when you talk about how athletic he is, he said the throws that he's able to make, the arm strength that he has, he was like, he has the strongest arm that he's ever caught from. So that, the fitness arm stuff or whatever they're talking about, that's why I keep going back to what exactly does that mean? Because everything I've seen, what I see, especially if you're talking about like as a prospect, I thought his arm was good, not great. But then you have to go back and think about it like, oh, well, he was a 19-year-old kid. And I remember watching him as a rookie and saying his arm is stronger now than it was in college. Now, he might not know where the ball is going. It'd be a 5-yard slant and it just goes way over somebody's head. But it was very clear there's a lot of velocity and pop behind his throws. So, and again, George Kittle backed that as well. Like, dude, he didn't have to say, he could have said Dak Prescott, who I think was more comparable when he was coming out of college, which athletic, but not freakish athletic. Solid arm, not Josh Allen. I thought he was more of that. Then I watched him. I'm like, oh, this is closer to Josh Allen in the sense of like intangibles. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's why I call BS on all of this. And I don't know who's talking, but the only people that put their names to it is Kyle Shanahan, and he said only good things. John Lynch tried to trade Jimmy Garoppolo already. Obviously, that was the plan. And George Kittle, 49ers heart and soul player, saying great things about Josh Allen. So,
real quick, I do want to say, we don't know what he's going to be. Like, he could very well suck. If you say that, what were there, 5 quarterbacks in the first round? If you say, oh man, they're going to all suck, you'd be more right than wrong, right? Like, most of the time players don't pan out. So there's a scenario where he's just not good. I'm just saying I got to pump the brakes on that, because what I've seen so far is someone who looks like, if it all comes together, he's a terrific quarterback. Will it happen? I don't know. And if he sucks, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. Kyle's good enough to, figure things out. But right now, from what I've seen, he doesn't look like someone that just can't play. And I think that's the part that I keep going back to. You can watch somebody where it's like, this guy can't play. Now, if maybe all I saw was some of the preseason throws, if maybe all I saw was Arizona, maybe I'd say that. But you started seeing it to come together. First of all, you could read, I won't say read between the lines, but when you just watch them and it's like, okay, I see some playmaking ability there. Oh, I see some aggressiveness with his throws. Okay, I see some darts. I see some tight window stuff. It might be hit and miss, but I see it. Okay, it's coming together. You watch it against Houston, right? Where you're seeing a lot of things that you want to see. Some of the drive throws, tight window throws, 1, 2, 3, ball out. You also see times where he hangs on to the ball too long, right? You see the aggressiveness to push the ball down the field. So I thought he showed, like, okay, in the sense of, did you draft a guy that you thought you were getting? To me, he looks like that guy, whoever you thought he was getting. Now, how do you get him to be more consistent so he can be a legit starting NFL quarterback? And I think that just comes with more reps. But that's just what I see. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and coach him up. The raw talent is there. And if you want to cut through the BS, trust your eyes. Trust what we saw. The quarterback we saw in his rookie season against the Houston Texans is something you can win with, something you can work with, and that's the base level of what he's at. If that's the worst that we're going to see from Trey Lance, then you're in
I think some people see a different guy, though. Like we see like, oh, okay, like I can work with this. Let's even get him better from here. But
Right.
there are other people that are like, even after watching Houston, it's like, oh, I don't like what I saw. Now I don't know how you come to that conclusion. I think if you just don't like him initially, then you could say, oh yeah, he was terrible first half, which he wasn't. He completed 10 out of 13 passes and had a pick. All right, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. Like they act like he had like a Zach Wilson half where he had 4 interceptions and 4 completions. Like, wasn't that? He just, okay, maybe not in rhythm. All right, well, okay, maybe that'll come down the line. And then you saw start getting a little bit more of a rhythm second half. But I don't know. I thought I saw somebody where it's like, okay, it's coming together. But there are a lot of people that even they just disregard that.
All right, we're gonna have to push back this other stuff about the clues from the 49ers draft about what might happen in free agency in 2023, and we'll get into a number of other topics tomorrow when we go live. We're going live Thursday night, then we'll have our Spencer Burford, Nick Zakel scouting reports for you on Monday morning's podcast that will premiere Sunday night on the YouTube channel. So that is what's coming up here. Last final thoughts here on the Trey Lance stuff is, and I think you nailed it, we don't know. We have no idea. He could be a superstar. He could be a bust. It's the same that we could say about all 5 of the rookie quarterbacks from last year. I think it is the number one storyline coming into this year is we are going to start to see what those quarterbacks are all about. And this 2022 rookie quarterback class was not good. So last year's class going into year 2, and that's where you see a huge jump in progression from any NFL player is between year 1 and year 2. We're gonna have a lot of fun watching these guys and see how these guys develop. And there's gonna be a lot of early. I don't want to say there's gonna be a lot of chest pounding after week one way or the other. Whether if Trey Lance goes into Chicago and the 49ers beat up on the Bears, or if he struggles and the Bears win that game. And there's going to be a lot of people who liked Justin Fields and be like, I told you Justin Fields is the guy. And if he's bad, it's going to be, I told you Justin Fields is a bust. Trey Lance is awesome. We're going to start seeing that in week 1 next year. That's going to be a fascinating storyline from all the rookie quarterbacks. And obviously it's going to be huge with the 49ers. If indeed Trey Lance is the starting quarterback for the 49ers, which I fully believe he will be. But for any listener out there and for anybody who's kind of wondering what to believe, trust yourself, trust your eyes. Go back and put on that tape. Go watch the Texans game. That's the quarterback that the 49ers are working with right now. There's a lot of talent there. I think he's smart. He's athletic, has a strong arm. Don't listen to the stuff about the fitness of his arm. He's going to work on his mechanics. He'll get more accurate. He'll learn the playbook better than he did before. He might not become the combination of Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson that Kyle Shanahan said last year that he was looking for in the perfect quarterback prospect, right? But I think he's going to be something. And here's the other question for you, Croc, on the way out the door. Is he it? Because a lot of people say, and even Ryan Harris in this report, he says that the reason he chose Trey Lance is because Trey Lance is in the best spot because it's the best roster and he's got a really good coach like Kyle Shanahan. But whether it's because of Shanahan or Mike McDaniel or Rich Scangarello or, whoever, what quarterbacks have gotten better with the 49ers? And is there a coaching problem and not a quarterback talent problem?
I think that there could be a Kyle Shanahan problem with his inability to adjust to the players. So if you come in and you are, and we talked about this a little bit on a previous episode, but if you come in and you hit the ground running as a Kyle Shanahan guy, then you'll be fine. But if you don't, I think it's hard to kind of get out of that Kyle Shanahan cloud where you're not doing it how I want you to do it. And it would be nice to see Kyle say, you know what? Let me not force my views or way of doing things on this kid and let him be a little bit more free. And we've seen that with other guys, right? We've seen that with Andy Reid, where you watch Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying this kid is Patrick Mahomes, but I remember heading into the Super Bowl, I watched a lot of film. The 49ers are going to play Kansas City. And I'm watching it and I said, is Patrick Mahomes a one-read quarterback? Right? Like, I'm like, he's a one-read quarterback. And what he was doing was he'd look at his first read, and if it wasn't there, he'd just move around and look to make a play, then he'd make a play off script. And Andy Reid had to just get comfortable with that. Go ahead, do your thing. But if Andy Reid was like, no, this, and sometimes, again, Patrick Mahomes, I don't know if anybody throws more interceptable passes than him. But I do think there's this element of figuring out how to, what's the word I'm looking for, with like a wife and a compromise. There has to be a little bit of compromise there with Kyle Shanahan early on. And I saw a lot of playmaking ability. You got to be able to live with that right now until you fully grasp it. And that might take at least a full year of actually playing in Kyle Shanahan's offense before he gets in a rhythm,
I always say the most important thing on an NFL team for success is that marriage between the head coach and the quarterback. If you have that, everything else is going to be gravy for your franchise. And it is a marriage, right? Trust, communication, compromise. There's a ton of things that go into that. And while you're doing those things early, there is some training going on, right? How much, Croc, has your wife trained you over the course of your marriage, right? And you might not even believe it's happening until all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's like, did I get trained? And that's what happens.
I give my wife a lot of credit. And I tell her, I didn't even know that I could be like a better version of myself. But she sat me down and told me, like, look, you can be you. You can be Eric from North Stockton. But you can also become a better version of yourself. And that's what I had to really work on. But you got to be real with who you are and look in the mirror and understand that there are things that you can do better and to really become the best version of you. And I think Kyle Shanahan, as good of a coach as he is, has he allowed himself to be the best version of himself that he could be? I think that's a big question.
All right. We took this even deeper than I expected us to on this edition of Locked On 49ers. I can't wait to see the development of the marriage between Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance throughout training camp. We'll see if Jimmy Garoppolo is a part of this, because you start throwing in a side piece into a relationship, and that's usually a bad thing. So anyway, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about these reports. I call a lot of BS on a lot of these reports until I start seeing some names and connected to the reports, and I actually see Jimmy Garoppolo stick around with the 49ers and actually start games in week 1. And then we're going to have a different conversation here on the program. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Find the rest that the podcast network has to offer for you, like Locked On NFL Draft and like the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Croc and I back tomorrow. We will go live. I'm sure a lot of you folks have a lot of questions. So Croc and I are going to have fun Thursday night, go live, maybe have a guest jump on with us and chat it up about these 49ers in the offseason, talk about the rookie class, talking about the upcoming season, a little bit of the schedule, maybe your favorite games. And then we'll come back with some more scouting reports on the rest of the rookie class next week. Talk to you then right here. Locked On 49ers.